What's up? This is Greg from Three Doors Down, and you're listening to Thunder Underground.
Welcome to episode 373 of the Thunder Underground podcast. Trent here as always. And this week we've got a great one because Greg Upchurch, the drummer for Three Doors Down, is joining me here on this podcast. Greg's been a longtime member of Three Doors Down. He's also the drummer for Puddle of Mud before that, as well as the band 11, and the touring drummer for Chris Cornell. We're going to talk about all that stuff. And we're also going to talk about Greg's new business venture here in the great state of Oklahoma. He has a new coffee shop called Greg's Rockin' Goat Coffee in southern Oklahoma. So we're going to talk about that as well. And a couple other things. But before we do, I need to let you know who the sponsors are. And that would be DEB Concerts, concert promoter based right here in the Tulsa, Oklahoma area, and has brought lots of great shows to the downtown Tulsa area with bands like Saxon, Last in Line, Buck Cherry, Warrant, Winger, Tom Kiefer of Cinderella, Lita Ford, Great White, Bisto Blanco. The list is great and long. They've also brought arena acts to the BOK Center here in Tulsa, like Snoop Dogg, Ice Cube, Lamb of God, Megadeth, Poison. And they continue bringing these acts as well. And on top of all that, they book the Roadhouse stage at Rocklahoma every year, and this year is no exception. The Rocklahoma lineup was announced a couple weeks ago. And as far as the DEB concerts part of that at the Roadhouse stage, that stage will feature the pre-party on Thursday night, the first night of Rocklahoma. If you're a full weekend pass holder, you can see Warrant. The other three nights on the Roadhouse stage will be headlined by Kix, Skid Row, and Buck Cherry. LA Guns will also be on that stage, as well as several other acts. Get on debconcerts.com for ticket info for Rocklahoma or any other of their shows, and also upcoming news. And of course, we keep you up to date right here as well. We've also got MedPharm, a dispensary located in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 24683 East Highway 51. They're right off the highway. They've got a huge selection. You can check it out entirely at leafly.com. You can, of course, go inside as well. They've got tons of knowledgeable staff. They also have a drive-thru, which is a huge benefit because there's tons of dispensaries that do not have that option. You can call or message your order ahead of time and then go right through that drive-thru and be on your way. If you follow them on their socials, on Facebook, that's MedPharm, PHARM. Instagram is MedPharmOK. They're always running specials. Great deals, so you don't want to miss any of those. And one of the deals that's always running is if you mention Thunder Underground, they'll give you 10% off your first order. You can't beat that. And on top of all this, they are cannabis with a cause. That means 30% of their proceeds at all times go to build no-kill animal shelters. That's a huge deal. Most places don't donate a fraction of their profits, let alone nearly a third at all times to do something like this. So wherever you're at in the Tulsa area, it's worth driving to MedPharm for that alone. So hit up MedPharm. It's March. All these dispensaries run March Madness deals. I guarantee you MedPharm's no different. So get on leafly.com, Weed Maps, or whatever you use. Check out what's going on at MedPharm. Finally, we've got Sunset Tattoo, a tattoo shop located in Midtown Tulsa. Their tattoos are done good and proper. They're state licensed, and they are mother approved. 25 plus years of experience from Jason Thompson and his crew over there. Excel at all different styles. So if you get on their Facebook or their Instagram, both those are Sunset Tattoo Tulsa, you can see tons of pics from throughout the years of all the styles that Jason's great at. Jason's done a tattoo on me. I'm very happy with it. I know several other people that have gotten tattoos from him as well. So shoot him a message or give him a call to talk about what work you want to have done to set your appointment. They also accept walk-ins, so hit up Sunset Tattoo and tell them you heard about them on Thunder Underground. All right, before we get into the Greg Upchurch talk, we need to talk about an unfortunate event, which was the passing of Wayne Swinney, the lead guitarist and one of the original founding members of Saliva. If you're hearing this the day it came out, Wayne just passed away yesterday. I'm recording this here on Wednesday, March 22nd, which is unfortunately the day Wayne passed away. So there doesn't really need to be tons of details, but the details are he unfortunately had a brain hemorrhage and was found, I'm guessing, in a hospital room a hotel room or a tour bus or something because they're currently on tour. He was found Tuesday morning, rushed to ICU. Unfortunately, did not make it. Saliva, has been going strong now for 96, I think, is when they started. So we're now in our 27th year, which is crazy to think about, right? This band always got thrown into that new metal thing at first, and then the radio rock, kind of format, which is, fine and acceptable, but they had a lot more to them than a lot of those bands had. And part of that was Wayne and I don't know if it's just, not just his image, but his guitar playing, screamed old school rock and roll. The lyrics, or the way that Josie Scott sang songs, some of those songs in the early days, just had the band had a swagger and a kind of a in-your-face punch that, could be harkened back to an 80s rock band, even though they didn't really sound like an 80s rock band, but they just had that attitude and that style. From the Every 6 Seconds, which wasn't the debut, it was actually their second album, but it's the breakthrough mainstream national album that, spawned the hits like Click, Click, Boom and Your Disease. And then the band was off and running from there. Clear up to now, they've got their current single is called High on Me, and it's been getting a lot of traction. It's got tons of streams, and rightfully so. Check it out if you have not. It's a good one. They've carried on now for over a decade with Bobby Amaro Jr. I've had the chance to see Saliva many times throughout the years, going clear back to, the Every 6 Seconds era over 20 years ago. And they're always a great live band. And I got the chance to see them as recently as last September at the Blue Ridge Rock Fest when I was working. And that was when they did their onstage reunion with Josie Scott for the first time in over a decade. Kind of looking back, now, obviously in hindsight, you've got to think, was this, not was it, is it, it was, I guess it is because it happened. It was destined to happen. Everybody always clamors for those original lineups, whether it be the singer, the guitarist. And Saliva has survived quite a while now without Josie Scott. They've done fine. But, from my standpoint, Josie Scott's voice is as much Saliva as anything, and as much, as Wayne Swinney's guitar sound. So to see those guys be able to reunite for a few songs, like 6-7 months ago now, it's just, amazing to be able to look back and see that was able to happen, before it was too late, because this was, a freak thing that obviously no one saw coming, the loss of Wayne. So it's, it's unfortunate, and happy for the opportunity for anybody that has ever got the chance to see him live, and, happy for myself that I got the chance to many times. And if you're one of those people that are just familiar with the radio songs, dig in there a little deeper. My favorite Saliva song, I think, is Survival of the Sickest, which was a known radio single. But they've got other songs, kind of deep cuts that are amazing, like Two Steps Back, Holding On, Southern Girls. There's just a few from the Josie Scott area. And like I said, they've got newer stuff. They've got a new single. There's several new singles out now, 3, I think. Crows and High on Me. So check those out as well. If you hadn't had a chance to check out the Thunder Underground episode with Josie Scott, be sure and do that if you get a chance, because we talked about, of course, about the Blue Ridge show. And of course, he talks about reuniting with Wayne after all these years and what it meant to him. That's something you should check out as well if you have not. Condolences to Saliva and anyone that has anything to do with the Saliva team, and of course, Wayne's family and friends. And of course, fans out there. A loss to the rock and roll world. Rest in peace, Wayne Swinney. Alright, so on to happier news, which would be Greg Upchurch. I guess that's not really news, but happier topics, I guess. I guess it would be news if you didn't know, which you might not if you're from this area, but even a lot of people from this area might not know. I mean, I'm in Oklahoma, but I'm at least a couple hours away from Kingston, Oklahoma, which is the town that Greg grew up in partially, and this is where he has his brand new coffee shop called Greg's Rockin' Goat Coffee that opened mid last year. And he goes into great detail. We talk a lot about what brought this on, his involvement with it, how hands-on he is and everything that's going on with the coffee shop, which is great stuff. You can also go online to Greg's Rock and Goat Coffee's website and buy the coffee directly from them that they roast right there on site. And as he talks about here in the interview coming up, everything is roasted to order. So if you right now got on there and ordered something, they're not just going to turn around and grab a bag that was roasted a month or two ago and throw it in a box and ship it to you. You're going to get something that was roasted tomorrow or however the process goes. So that is something very cool. As for Greg on the music side, which is the reason this podcast exists and the reason most people are listening, is that Greg has been the drummer for Three Doors Down now for, this will be his 18th year. He joined in 2005. And Three Doors Down just announced, just a few days ago, maybe a couple days ago now, their summer tour, which features Candlebox opening up. And their summer tour is a 20th anniversary of Away from the Sun, which came out in 2003. Their second album, great album. They did the 20th anniversary of Better Life a couple years ago. We'll see, if they keep doing this for every album or not. A lot of bands do it, for the early albums or the albums that were the most commercially successful. But I know the third album is whenever Greg joined, and that was pretty successful as well. It featured, or no, that wasn't this. Was that 17 Days or? Yeah, and then the fourth album was the self-titled, which featured "It's Not My Time," which is probably my favorite Three Doors Down song. There's lots of great stuff throughout there, but even I believe he mentions that here in this interview when we're talking about singles. But anyway, Greg's career is kind of unique in a way that, you always hear about bands or artists like toiling away for years and years and years and years, whether it be just by themselves or in a band format, like a band, has been around 10, 15 years, struggling in the clubs, sleeping on floors, whatever they can do to get by, to get known and get out there, and then they finally break big. And then you hear the opposite of that, where you hear, a band formed last year and the right person heard them or saw them, helped them get that album out, and, now we all know who they are. And Greg Upchurch as a musician, it's not an overnight success, but it's a pretty quick, upward climb that he did. Like he talks about, I've seen in social media posts and interviews in the past, that he was working at Guitar Center whenever he happened to meet the members of the band 11 when they came in. I believe the story is they were on tour and they came in and he was helping them, and they mentioned that, or somehow the subject came up that they were looking for a drummer, because 11's original drummer was Jack Irons, who went on to join Pearl Jam, and of course was in Red Hot Chili Peppers before Chad Smith was, as was, I believe, the guitarist of 11. I could be wrong on that, but I think that's right. But anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Greg, and that would be that, he met the members of 11 and he joined the band, became the drummer for 11. I think he played on their third or fourth album, and then not long after that, 11 became the backing band for Chris Cornell's solo tour. And I know that the members of 11 helped write and even recorded some of his first solo album, Euphoria Morning. I actually looked it up before I said this just to make sure I was right, and I think Greg played on one or two tracks on the album. And then he went on tour as Chris Cornell's drummer. And then not long after that, he joins the band Puddle of Mudd. And then Puddle of Mudd releases their debut album. And then they blow up. And he's in Puddle of Mudd through the height of their career, the first several years. I'm a big fan of those first two Puddle of Mudd albums. Then, I guess at some point he gets the call, and he joins Three Doors Down in 2005. So all within the span of like probably 8 years, 7, 8 years, he goes from working in Guitar Center to joining an established rock band, nationally touring, well-known rock band, and then quickly becomes the drummer for one of the greatest vocalists of all time, and then joins another band that is right on the verge of blowing up, and then joins one of the biggest rock bands in the country, and here we are, nearly 20 years later, and he has cemented himself as a fixture in Three Doors Down. Got the chance to see Three Doors Down several times throughout the years. I believe I need to look up, I should have looked up when Greg actually joined Three Doors Down, but I assumed it was before I saw them live that year. I saw them live on like their first tour, the Better Life tour, like I think at like a Cat Fest in Oklahoma City or something. They were like one of the early bands on the, like going on at like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then within a year or two, they were at the top of the bill. Got to see them several times, and then one of the times was in 2005 when they were touring on their third album, late in that fall, and they had Shinedown and Alter Bridge opening for them. Which, I mean, that's one hell of a bill when you think about those 3 bands. And it was before, Shinedown became an arena headliner. They were already a well-established band by that point, but their second album just came out, and Alter Bridge, I believe this was actually touring on their first album. So I'm sure that's the first time I saw Greg live, and then clear up to the most recent time would have been also last September at Blue Ridge when I talked about seeing Saliva for the last time, or the most recent time. Same thing with Three Doors Down. Got the chance to check them out there as well, and they sound as great as ever. So they got this tour coming up this summer, like I said, Away from the Sun, 20th anniversary tour, which means they're probably going to play it in its entirety, and then they'll play all the other hits as well. It also features Candlebox opening, and when this was announced a couple days ago, Kevin Martin released a short video on social media talking about the tour, and then said that this will be Candlebox's final tour. Or he said this will be Candlebox's final ever tour. I believe at some point, I remember, it might have even been on the first time he was on this podcast, but he mentioned that, he wasn't going to keep going on forever, like a lot of those guys do, and he could see it wrapping up at some point. Here we are, 2023 is 30 years from Candlebox's debut album, so I guess that's as good as a time as any. Then again, you don't know what he actually meant by that. This day and age, it's kind of weird to say something like that too, because in the grand scheme of things, 30 years is a long time, but it's still pretty young for these guys. They're not super old. Kevin Martin still sounds exceptional. So who's to say 5 years from now, he's not going to be like, man, I want to take this out on tour. And then they do it, just like every other band not every band, but a lot of bands that say this is the end and then they get back together. But that's beside all the point. He said it's their final tour. Maybe that means they're going to play shows randomly, next year. They could just do a festival here or there. They could do a hometown Seattle show, whatever. Why am I delving so deep into this? I don't know, but that's the news there from Candlebox. So you've got a great bill this summer with Three Doors Down and Candlebox to look forward to. But yeah, I need to quit rambling here, and let's just jump into this interview and hear what Greg has to say. Here is Greg Upchurch of Three Doors Down. Yeah, you had a show last weekend, right? Or, the weekend before last?
Yeah, I was in Orlando. But I haven't been I live in Nashville, and I haven't been home. So, because I've been in Oklahoma, and I spent 2 weeks there because I've been gone for 2 months. And so I went home for a couple weeks, and now I'm back in Oklahoma again. I'll be here probably till close to the end of May.
Oh, okay. So do you have a place near Kingston as well, or you just stay with family?
I stay with my mom.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's funny because my mom's got this little 1-bedroom house, and me and my 2 other brothers live there right now.
Wow.
I'm serious. I sleep on the floor on a little palate thing.
It's like going back to the days of
well,
your youth.
yeah, it definitely reminds me of California days when I first moved out there. But you have to sacrifice to do what you want, to live your dreams, you know?
Right. Well, speaking of here in the Kingston area, you opened Greg's Rockin' Goat Coffee here about, what, 6-8 months ago? Like, how's it been going so far?
It's nerve-wracking. I mean, I invested into this community just because, well, I grew up here. I love Lake Texoma. I love the lake, fishing, I don't know. And I never felt, when I moved to Los Angeles, I never felt like I was a Los Angelinian or something, you know. And then now I live in Nashville and I don't feel like, you know, a Nashvilleian. I've always felt like Lake Texas, I'm a Texoman or whatever, you know. I'm just like, this is the only place that I really feel like home. You know, even when I cross the state line into Oklahoma, I feel different.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's a nostalgia thing or what, but you know, I guess it's kind of like that song, you never, always 17 in your hometown or whatever. It's like a country song or something. But, you know, and then, I don't know, it's a good place to, people ask me if I want to live here. And I tell them I want to die here. You know, it's like, it's slow pace. You know, my wife laughs at me because my two least favorite things are making a left turn and putting on a duvet cover. The most.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I like Oklahoma. You know, I'm an Okie.
Yeah. As far as it comes to the coffee shop, most guys, you know, like kind of musicians or athletes or whoever, someone in a celebrity position, when they do this, they do a collaboration with a coffee and just release a coffee. You went all in with the shop. Like, has this been something you had dreamed about doing for a while, or someone just hit you up about it? Or,
well, my mom owns this building and it's right at the red light. It's on Highway 70. I mean, there's just nonstop traffic going up and down here. And so I was like, what could I put here? Well, but you know, and I got sober about 9 years ago, and now I'm addicted to coffee. You know, and so there's no coffee shop here. I mean, there's a diner and a donut shop, the gas station, but no coffee shop. So, and then I started kind of studying it, and like there's a coffee shop in Nashville that I go to that's like an old cabin, and when I walk in there, there'd be these bluegrass musicians in the back, and I just listen. They're all singing background vocals and harmonies, and it sounds like Alice Krauss and Union Station or something. I'm like, I just sat there, I was like, I loved it. I was like, I can kind of do whatever I want with this thing, you know. Hold on one second. I'm just doing an interview, but thank you. Just said it right there. My brother's something got dropped off at the house.
Okay. No problem.
I'm ordering cups and sleeves and, you know, all the different things like that.
Yeah.
So, but no, I mean, so I thought, well, I could do that, you know, and then my buddy was like, yeah, you should put all your gold records and all your stuff in there. And I started really kind of brainstorming and kind of snowballed and making it like sorry, somebody's calling me. I'm going to end. I don't want to touch it.
Okay.
It says scam on it.
Oh, wow.
I love, that's my favorite feature right now.
Yeah, same here.
Scam likely.
Yeah.
I'm like, you didn't give me that time.
Right.
No, but so just put my stuff in here and kind of like, you know, I was just thinking like Blake Shelton's got Old Red. Toby Keith's got I Love This Bar. I mean, everybody's kind of musician-wise diversifying. Like if you go down Broadway in Nashville, it's Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row, Kid Rock's Rooftop, the Big and Rich. He's got one. Even what's his name? I can't even think of his name. Gavin DeGraw. He's got one there called Nashville Underground. So everybody's kind of like doing these other things, but they're all the same thing. It's a honky tonk. It's like a bar restaurant. It's like a Chili's or something to me. You know, right. It's kind of, but with live music. So I wanted to do something, you know, different than that. Being that I don't drink, you know, and I'm kind of living that lifestyle. And I thought like, I'll combine those two things, because in the music industry, you kind of need to diversify, because if you're planning on making a decent living, I mean, well, not decent living, but like try to where your only worries are about shows, not paying my phone bill,
Right.
but doing it through music, it's tricky, and this actually lets me be a musician. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I don't have to rely on that. I can relax on that. I don't like, oh God, we're not touring for 3 months. That they kind of like worry about, how am I going to pay the mortgage this month? Those kinds of, because I was a part of it at the 90s, when I started doing this, and people were buying CDs and there were record sales, and we were doing videos, and like with Puddle of Mud, that I was at that band when it blew up, and it was just an explosion. And then, I never had money in my life, and so it was just kind of like mind blowing, like, oh wow. And then I've just kind of like sustained that, because really the key to this in my industry is longevity. I always thought like it wasn't about how much I was going to make, it's about how long can I do it. And it's just, I need to afford myself the ability to go do it, where I don't have to like quit playing drums because I just have to go get a job. I mean, it doesn't matter how big your band is. I mean, we're a rock band, and it's like we can tour, but like how often do I want to tour? So I put this, and I fell in love with doing this. It's been so enjoyable. Now, granted, last week in Orlando was awesome, because I was like, oh yeah, this is my job. It's not stressing out over my own business, I let it, because, a coffee shop is something that's pretty simple in the sense that I don't need a whole staff. I got 4 employees. I got 4 great baristas. And I'm roasting my own coffee here, and it's right because in this building has another building attached to it, and I'm roasting my own coffee. And the way it happened is it's like the universe put me here to do this, because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start this coffee shop. And right before I opened, like a month before I was about to open, this guy walks in here and he was like, hey, have you ever thought about roasting? I was like, well, yeah, but I don't have 80 grand for a roaster. I don't know how to roast. I put everything into this. I'm just going to buy my beans from somebody, And he's like, well, I'm from Kingston. I live he owns a coffee farm in Bolivia, and he lives in Bolivia now, but he's here. His parents still live here. He's here all the time. And we ended up just kind of partnering up, and I'm like, yeah, so we're just kind of like started this business together. And I really didn't know him, but it was kind of like, it's better to know each other than start with somebody that you really know. Yeah. We put everything in black and white. We're just splitting everything 50-50. And now my coffee shop's one thing, but the roasting thing, it's been, its own thing. But it was like, how in this little town, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Kingston, but the odds of somebody walking in here wanting to roast coffee and knowing how to do it and trained us on how to do it. And he owns his own farm. We get the beans from his farm. So that was crazy,
right.
And then I was just going to be my own barista and figure it out on YouTube. I was like, sure, everything's on YouTube. I can learn everything. I'll Google it, And then this guy her husband works at the hardware store, and I was buying stuff when I was building this thing. And his wife, they just moved to town, and she was a barista, and she trained everybody at this coffee shop she was working at, and she's a singer-songwriter. And I'm like, oh my God. And she is incredible. And because I want to have live music in here, what I want to do is more than anything it's about trying to get people to write songs here, have a place where other songwriters can meet other songwriters. Like I want to do there's a place in Nashville called the Bluebird, and that it's usually like 4 or 5 guys sitting in chairs and they're just playing their own songs. I want to do something like that, but also where they can write together and like meet other songwriters, because it's hard when you're doing it by yourself. You need somebody to bounce ideas off of, and not everybody has that person, and that he might be in the town right next to you, and you guys see eye to eye, and it's a good place for them to meet, because I think there's a lot of talent around, Because I watch drummers that are like 6 years old that are like blowing me away. I'm like, how is this possible? And I think it's probably because of the YouTube generation, where they can just watch videos. Back in my day, you had to get a VHS tape, and watch it and learn on the instructional videos. Where now everything, find out anything. How do you play this beat or this guitar lick, or how do you play Eruption? And learning Eruption is nothing. So there's a lot of talent, and I just worry that some kids, like in a small town, Oklahoma, thinks, well, I can't do that. I live here, and I just want to put this here and be like, look, I'm from here too. You might have to get out of here, but if you're lucky enough, you'll go back to the sacrificing or whatever, like sleeping on the floor. Like, you need to go through those phases to appreciate what success is. Everybody's version of success is different. Success is it's more like it's a state of mind. It's like you never know whose version of that is. Mine is just being happy. If I'm happy, that's success. And just doing what I love. I mean, I not many people can say they do what they love at 51, what they loved to do when they were 9.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I've been fortunate enough to be able to, through my career, play an instrument and not be an asshole and be able to get gigs. You know what I mean? Because I tell young people all the time, is like, the key to success in my industry and just about any industry is don't be an addict and don't be a dick. Yeah. I mean, that's simple. And just go for it. Be a person that you like to hang out with. Just be nice. I don't know. Call me a dreamer.
Yeah. I read that recently that you spoke. Was it at your high school? Was it?
I spoke at another high school.
Okay. Was it that general theme of what you just spoke about, or?
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, tell my story, what I did, and going to California and Los Angeles, never been there before, just kind of in how my career got started. Is about putting myself out there and being around like-minded people and just networking, because everything in life really is networking. So, it gets you this, or, just meeting people. And you're not going to get that by sitting at home playing video games or watching TV or just sitting on YouTube learning how to play Eruption. But you know what I mean? It's like, you have to kind of like, when you're old enough, depending on what you want to do, it's all relative. If you want to be a fishing guide, stay here. It's like, but I didn't. I wanted to be in Motley Crue when I was growing up. I wanted that. Yeah. That's the only thing I could ever think about. And so I was 22, I think. And it was like, it just kind of, it was scary as hell. It was just as scary as coming back to Oklahoma to start my own business. I feel like, what am I doing? This is crazy. Coffee Kingston, it's so far as the locals have really liked it. And like I said, this is a big summer resort town. I saw Gwen Stefani not that long ago across the street. She stuck out like a sore thumb. Yeah. Her and Blake, they have a house here. And I was like, she's wearing like $140,000 worth of clothes. I was like, yeah. Anyway.
I know the original name was Greg's Dancing Goat. Like, where did that, or like, what's the story behind that, or was it?
Well, the Greg's Dancing Goat was, the story with the goat is they say is that's how these Ethiopian goat herders, the goats would eat the coffee cherries, and then they would look like they were dancing because they were all getting all caffeine, all the caffeine intake, and that's how they kind of figured out. They started, that's how we found coffee, was these goats, and they used to call them the dancing goats. And so I was like, all right, dancing goat. So, and I swear, I remember I Googled it or Facebook looking for like, well, is there another one? And the only one I could find was the Dancing Goat Cafe, and it was in Kingston, United Kingdom.
What are the odds? Yeah,
I know, and it was on Beverly Road, and my mom's name is Beverly, and she's the one. This is her building that she let me do this in, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the name, But then, so I did that, and then there was there's a coffee shop in like Spokane, Washington, or somewhere up in the Northwest, suburbs of Washington State, sent me a cease and desist letter. They were called the Dancing Goats because I put my name on it first, Graves Dancing Goat, just to make it, like Blake's Old Red or whatever, but kind of like thing. And then, so I had to change it. And that was right before I opened too. I already bought shirts, had merchandise made up, had the walls logoed up.
Oh man.
But I couldn't believe they found me, in Washington State and found this, and they had, in Kingston, Oklahoma. But then I guess, probably somebody who's a fan of the band said, "Oh, he's putting up a Dancing Goat," and then they saw it and they were like not having it. So anyway, so I was like, "What do I change it to?" And I tried Drum and Goat, this goat, that goat, and just Rock and Goat, and then it wasn't too much thought into that, but I just needed to change the name fast.
Yeah. What'd you end up having to do with all that merch you bought?
I gave it to the homeless up in Washington State.
Oh yeah.
In the same town that is Spokane.
That's wow.
I think the homeless donated in Spokane. So I figured it'd be driving crazy seeing my shirts everywhere.
You're right.
On home.
Is this something that if it's successful in the years, would you think of doing one in Nashville as well, or is there too much competition? This is more just like a hometown kind of thing.
Yeah, I want to keep it regional. I mean, I might have more here and there and see how far. I mean, I don't know how far I can take this thing, but I mean, just start with this one and go from there. And the bummer is I don't have a drive-through because this building just isn't equipped for that. But you need to come in here and see it because, I've got all my it's all music stuff, and we've got a vinyl. I got a turntable. We listen to vinyl records. Let the customers thumb to them, put on what they want.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I think it's good for the kids, like younger kids, to put on records and check it out. And some of them don't ever see that. It's like that's how we used to listen to music. Well,
speaking of music, you released this Skin to Skin track during the lockdown.
Yeah,
obviously the theme was about the lockdown, right? But what kind of set the motion for doing this solo track? Was it just boredom or
boredom. I mean, the engineer, we had a studio up in Nashville, and the engineer was renting a room in my basement. And so we already lived in the same house. And he was like, "You should write a song about it and we'll go record it." Because, at that point, right when it was going down, because this is right at the beginning of it, we're like, we're going to be stuck here for a while. We're not doing anything. So we're like, well, nobody's at the studio. So we just kind of went in there and did that. I wrote the song and we recorded it and put the cameras up in 2 days. And just now what? So I didn't know what to do. And I was doing interviews for it and stuff. And I guess because nothing was really happening and people on radio stations needed something to talk about or, other than COVID.
Right.
So it was actually pretty easy to get on these radio stations in New York and Detroit, Florida, California, It just used that name, Three Doors Down and all that, use it for what I can,
Well, you played everything on this song, right? Have you been a multi-instrumentalist your whole life, or was the guitar, bass, and everything come later?
Well, I play guitar, but I don't know what I'm doing. I know G, C, A, the basic chords, but I just play by ear, and bass I can kind of thumb my way around on it. Singing and not, I can't stand my voice, but most people can't. But they got so many bells and whistles on it, that make me sound good. A lot of people, sound perfect in the studio. It's like, well, it's easy to do now. You just download the app,
right?
And perfect,
Yeah. What do you feel you're strongest at besides the drums when it comes to any other instrument, vocally or guitar or anything? Is it all just kind of even? Okay.
I can play them in my house kind of thing, or I like to write songs, but I'm not confident enough to sit on stage. Other than the drums, that's it.
Okay.
I don't want to hold anything or have to stand where, I like sitting there where I don't have to make a decision on what my next rock move is going to be.
Yeah.
Sit there and play.
Well, is this something we could expect more of in the future, or is it kind of just a one-off thing because of the situation, or?
Yeah, it was kind of a one-off thing in the situation, and I've recorded a couple of other songs. Nothing that I feel comfortable in releasing. It's just more for my personal, you know. I'm never going to rule it out. I mean, because it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it, but I mean, right now, especially with this coffee shop, it's like I'm kind of like focused on this and how to get this thing going because we're leaving for tour. It starts in the middle of June and it goes through September into September.
Okay.
So we haven't announced any dates or a tour yet, but that's about the time. So I'm going to be gone for a good 3.5, 4 months. So I'm trying to really get this thing, you know, as far as like everything implemented that I can and have it running and smooth because we just added tomorrow we're adding chicken salad wraps, you know, and so just kind of like start to get into the food, see what I can get accomplished before I leave because like I said, summer here is crazy. There's a lot of people with money that come too.
Yeah.
Because some of the houses, like you go down to the lake houses, some of these houses, you're like, oh my God, it's so huge. You're like, I never used to go down there. That was like the nice neighborhood. I live in a trailer house, you know.
I read that I don't know, I think it was even before COVID that there was Three Doors Down, like an album being worked on. Is that something that like got stalled because of COVID, or is that something you're still working on? Or
no, we were going to work on it. We were going to try to do it through COVID, and we started doing it like through Facebook Lives or whatever, you know, and Zoom, but it really wasn't working.
okay.
You know, there's no excitement there, and you kind of need to be in a room, banging on the drums, playing the guitar through an amp, you know. But I did go to Brad's and write some songs, and then we wrote 2 songs. We're playing one live right now, but so it's kind of cool. Like now when we play the song, it's like me and Greg, the drummer, wrote it. I'm like, hey. So, but we're playing it live, which is good because I think we'll record it hopefully before we leave out in the tour. So next pretty soon. Because like I think the last song we did it with was "It's Not My Time," where we toured before we ever released the song. We toured and we played it live for a while, which is a good thing to do because it lets us. You can kind of find your way. Each guy can kind of play it, get comfortable with it, figure out what they want to change before it's like, you know, sometimes you'll write a song and record it right then.
Yeah,
you know, that's it forever. You know, you didn't get to play it live and kind of like see how it really feels. You know, let its identity show itself a little bit more of what it is instead of just like going there cold. So we'll see. Hopefully, you know, it's already kind of like maturing as we've played it. So we'll see. Hopefully, I mean, it's a ballad love song, but it's the typical Three Doors Down, like don't stray too far from like the Here Without You's, the Loser. I mean, those are great songs, you know, because the band struggled for a while trying to find, you know, we're not just that band. We can do this. It's like, yeah, you kind of are that band. You know, stay in your lane. It's great. You know, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
You know, but nowadays I listen to the radio and hear and stuff. I'm like, shit, we're more country than country.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like we're a rock band, but listen to the new Hardy, and I was like, that's a rock, you know, Co-Wessel. I mean, this is rock music.
Yeah.
They for some reason they got bastardized into country. I just don't know. I guess because they're from Texas or whatever. But I'm like, I remember they opened up for us in South Carolina. And it's a country guy from Texas named Co-Wessel. And I was like, okay. I watched him. And I was like, shit, there's country of Stone Temple Pilots. You know what I mean? Country about that. He's got 2 bass drums. You know? Like, it's not I don't know.
Yeah, at some point, country kind of, like you said, went into the rock vein and the pop vein, and it's kind of lost that middle ground, you know,
well,
at least in the mainstream, you know.
Right. Well, at least with Texas country, it's kind of rock oriented, whereas Nashville country is real pop and rap, almost hip hoppy kind of oriented. So I can, because to me, like when I hung out with the guys in the Co Wessel band, and they had the black tooth string tattoos, and I was like, it's funny to me because like Daryl influenced so many guitar players in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Like, so you country guys that are really Pantera fans, but they're playing some sort of, it's rock music with storytelling or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not all about, it was like Co Wessel, every other song, songs about cocaine, you know? But I think that's probably what a lot of the impact is of the Texas country so rock oriented, is because, it's like Stevie Ray Vaughan and Pantera is like Texas proud,
Yeah. Even ZZ Top. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned writing that song with Brad. Is the Three Doors Down writing process generally, is it Brad and then someone else, or is it all you guys kind of together, or how's that work? Is it?
It's been all kinds. Usually the best formula is Brad's got a song and he's just singing it. That's how he did with this last one. He was just singing the song, and I just kind of figured out the chords behind him. And then he didn't have a bridge, and then I wrote a musical part. And it's one of those songs, like, it just naturally felt like it needed to go to there, for a bridge. It kind of lifted it up a little bit. And he wrote the lyrics right then and there to the bridge. I mean, it was written in a couple hours, maybe. I mean, he had the lyrics. He sang the whole song. But he doesn't play guitar, piano, or anything. He plays drums, but he doesn't. So I had the guitar, and I was just playing along with him, and he'd be like, "That's what," and then we figured it out. With Three Doors Down, it's like, it's not rocket science. It's going to be 3 or 4 chords, and then that's the beauty of it. Willie Nelson, what did he say? 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Pretty early on in your professional career, 11 became Chris Cornell's backing band. I mean, obviously that's got to be valuable to like be able to like be out on the road with someone that was that revered in the rock world. Like, how did that set you up for your career professionally?
Well, that was just a crazy experience, just to be like because I was such a Soundgarden fan, when I was in Oklahoma and stuff. And to be in a band, I knew, like, to me, he was one of the greatest singers, and then to be in a band with him and having his voice going in my ear monitors, and just, oh my God, I'm think I was 25, 26 years old, fresh from Oklahoma, pretty close. Then a couple years, 3 years, something like that. But just, that was my first time on a tour bus. And I mean, I toured opening it for Soundgarden and stuff, but I was in a van, and this, I'm in the bus, and he's riding in the bus with us, and I'm sitting in the back lounge drinking cognac with him and hanging out and watching basketball games, and just, and he was just cool, like, in every sense of the word, like Fonzie kind of cool. Like, everything he said was clever. I mean, he's kind of introverted like that, like, he didn't talk a lot, but when he talked, it was intelligent. He was a very smart man, and it kind of like, it lost, the whole rock star thing lost itself, like, when I first started with him. But then again, you see him, you're like, holy shit, that's Chris Cornell. It's because, like, he's unmistakable. If he walks in a room, you're like, holy crap, that's him. But that was and I mean, when that tour ended, we were going to start a band, and we were actually thinking of names. And I remember calling my friend and here, and be like, oh my God, dude, I'm going to be in a band with Chris Cornell. We're starting a band. And then one day I went down to rehearsal at the other two from the 11s, and then Natasha was crying on the couch. I remember I was like, oh, what's going on? And then she just looked at me and she goes, fucking Rage Against the Machine and la la la, Audio Slave. And I was like, what? And kind of one of those middle of the night things, he changed his mind and ended up being an Audio Slave, which, obviously blew up.
Right.
And then, so that stopped that. So 11 continued on, and we went out and we toured with Queens of the Stone Age. I think Rated R record had just came out, and we did a tour with them. And then I don't really know exactly how it happened, but I got a call about Puddle of Mud, and they weren't anything at that point. They were looking for a drummer, and I went down on audition for them, and then I ended up going with Puddle of Mud, and then Alan and Natasha joined up with Queens of the Stone Age, and they still kept going because that was their band. I was just the drummer, and then Jack came back, who was the original drummer of 11, who I replaced because he went to Pearl Jam, and that's how that. And then that was at that same time that I met them. And then I was in Puddle of Mud for 4.5 years, almost 5 years. And then Three Doors Down needed a drummer, and I just saw, like I said, longevity. Wesley was a loose cannon, man, and I just saw a little bit more stability in Three Doors Down. And, because I'm a musician, it's not like these are my songs that I'm writing. I don't really, that's the beauty of the instrument that I play. I can go from band to band and hardly anybody really notices, which I love, and I love being in Three Doors Down because it's kind of like a faceless band, and it's just like not really nobody knows what we look like. It's not like we have these motley crew. Like I know who that is, and I know who that is. I could be the band accountant. So I mean, other than Brad, obviously being a lead singer, but like when you're in the band, you just kind of blend in.
Yeah,
and I love.
Well, when you first joined Three Doors Down, like how long was it before? Did they integrate you pretty quickly and kind of let you bring in your ideas, or did it take an album or two?
No, I mean, they just let me go. I mean, it's weird. It's because like going back to the Chris Cornell thing, it's kind of like I was in Puddle of Mud, but then I was also, when they were still playing bars, I was like, yeah, I was touring with Chris Cornell, and I had respect. Like they didn't talk down to me or like you're the new guy. There was none of that. So in the same way with Puddle of Mud, like I said, the Chris Cornell thing just set me up on a whole different level when I'm with other musicians. Like in Nashville, I'll say like, oh, well, you're meeting all these different musicians from different bands, like Jason Aldean, or I'm the bass player for this guy, whatever. And then I'll say, playing Three Doors Down, and then you play Puddle of Mud, and they're like, oh, that's cool. And then as soon as you say, and then Chris Cornell, and then like, oh, really? Everybody's kind of like, oh, okay. It's just another level. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'd put him on a Mount Rushmore of rock vocalists.
Yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I played a few shows with Hart, to fill in for their drummer when he was going through something with his wife. His wife got sick, and every once in a while he had to go to the hospital, and they just fly me out. I never rehearsed with them. I just play these shows. They give me an MP3 at the night before his concert. I listen to it on the plane. But I'm like, same thing. I'm like, I played with Chris Cornell and Ann Wilson. I'm like, two of the, maybe arguably the best singers in rock history, female and male. And I've gotten to play on stage with both of them.
Yeah.
So that's a tough one to top.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of a little bit change of subject. One of my all-time favorite bands is Tesla. And I had read that, I think that was your first concert and you're a big fan of Troy Luccketta, and that's how you kind of almost pushed you into being a drummer. Or am I remembering that right? Or
no, it's close. It was the first time I felt a bass drum at a concert doing that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they were the first band at the Texas Jam in '87, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And his drumming was so good, and I loved that record. That first, I mean, well, I loved all their stuff, but that first record, Modern Day Cowboy, and I was just like, blew my mind. I got to actually sit and talk with him at a studio, just kind of randomly. We had a great talk, and he was a super nice guy. But yeah, they were, out of all those metal bands in the '80s, they were different.
Yeah,
they were like players. They were like had a coolness to them the other ones didn't have.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of the jeans and shirts dudes, just playing like bluesy hard rock, that just kind of set them apart. Yeah,
and great hooks and melodies and vocals. I mean, the whole thing was great.
Was that? I mean, you mentioned Motley Crue. Was your first love of music that style of rock, or did you start somewhere else?
It was Kiss,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Kiss in the '70s, and Heart as well, because the drums in Barracuda were so cool, and I even played along like Pat Benatar and just whatever was on the radio kind of thing.
Yeah.
I didn't have MTV growing up, just wasn't here. I had a friend of mine that would record Headbangers Ball on VHS, and we'd watch that. She had one of those satellites, those big satellites you have in the backyard.
Yeah.
She had one of those. But just anything that was on the radio, it could be Men at Work. I mean, it could have been Duran Duran. I'm just playing everything I can. And then when a band director turned me on to jazz music, and then that kind of blew my mind as a drummer, and I started really getting into jazz and playing in the school jazz band and all that stuff. And then my band director actually took me in 1990, my senior year, to see Lenny Kravitz in Dallas. And Lenny Kravitz was just coming out. Let Love Rule was just kind of starting. And I remember, and that was like a magical, like, wow. I mean, it was cool. It was like a church religious thing. I'd never seen anything like it. So I had good band directors mentoring me when I was here. So that's also a big key to how I excelled.
Well, you've mentioned the upcoming tour from Three Doors Down. I mean, are you at a place now with the shop that you feel comfortable? Like you said, you're working towards it. You feel comfortable leaving and letting everybody else handle it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I've got 2 months from now, and I can just getting it dialed in. I mean, like I said, I've got some great baristas. They make some of them, and what's cool is I've created a spot where they love working here, and they're actually, one of them started making her own syrups. So every season we were doing these new syrups, and they're doing stuff around here like I never would have thought of, that so cute and cool and hip. And they're younger than me, most people are, but they go the extra mile and they care about it. And that's the thing, because I wanted to make sure my mom, who had that diner for 30 years, she always told me, she says, take care of your employees. You have to take care of your employees. And so I do. I try to make sure I have the best work environment there is. I've definitely got the coolest job in town. Listening to music all day, drinking coffee. I mean, it sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to this new music you got coming from Three Doors Down, and I appreciate you taking the time with me today, man.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate, like I said, I'm sorry it kind of got wires crossed, but we got it nailed down at least.
Yeah, absolutely.
You ever come down to Kingston?
It's been a long time, but I mean, I'm only about 2 hours away, I think.
You're about Tulsa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just come down, what is it, 69?
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, and then we're right here on Highway 70, it's at the light. My friends in California think that's great, and they're like, yeah, I got it. It's at the light. They love that address.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's what a small town it is. I remember Three Doors Down were actually the first people here and had coffee.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was 4th of July weekend, and there was so much traffic, and they were like, I thought you said you lived in a small town. I was like, I do. It's just I'm on a highway every red light, there's always 20 cars every minute in front of my building.
Yeah.
So it's a great location. It's just give it time to take off and make sure I don't screw it up.
Yeah, I go to Dallas a lot, but I'm always down 75. So
stop in. And also we sell our own coffee online. So I got to plug that. So it's gregsrockandgoat.com. We sell our own bag coffee. We make our own K-Cups. We got a K-Cup machine back there. And when you get it, it was roasted probably within 3-4 days.
Oh, wow.
We don't have stock. We kind of roast to order. So when you order it, we roast it and ship. We box ship it. We got it all. We ship it right from here.
Wow.
I'm telling you, man, that guy blew my mind. We're going to do it. Hopefully, I don't announce it yet, but I think we're going to try to do a Three Doors Down blend for the tour.
Okay.
Try to sell it at the shows. See, everybody likes coffee. Well, most people like coffee.
For sure.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go, Greg Upchurch of Three Doors Down. A huge thank you to Greg for taking some time out there to join me on Zoom to talk about Greg's Rock and Goat Coffee, Three Doors Down, Chris Cornell, and lots of other great stuff. So if you're in the Oklahoma area, the North Texas area, head over there to Kingston, Oklahoma, and hit up that coffee shop. And if Greg's there, say what's up, or just drop him a line on social media. Let him know what you think about the coffee. I'm going to try to hit that up at some point here myself. All right, if this is your first time listening, it is greatly appreciated. There's 372 episodes prior to this one that feature all kinds of guests across the gamut of rock and roll. You know, we were talking about Saliva earlier. Josie Scott was on here late last year. Mentioned Kevin Martin of Candlebox earlier. He's been on here twice. We've also had on members of Drowning Pool, Saving Abel, Trapped, Nonpoint, Seven Dust, Avatar, Danko Jones, Queensryche, Twisted Sister, King's X, Helmet, Prong, Typo Negative, White Zombie, Megadeth, Death Angel, Toxic Holocaust, Crowbar, Superjoint, Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, Kiss, Deep Purple. Man, what am I forgetting? I'm forgetting all kinds of stuff. Steelheart, Tesla, Warrant, Winger, Whitesnake, Motley Crue, John Corabi, the vocalist that replaced Vince Neil and Motley Crue and made Motley Crue's best album in 1994 was on here at one point. So check that one out if you have not. I've also had on Shooter Jennings, Vanilla Ice, all kinds of great shit throughout the years. TheThunderUnderground.com. You can listen directly on the website on the player there, or you can listen pretty much anywhere podcast I heard, like Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, etc., wherever you're listening right now. Like or subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Future episodes include Terry I. Lou, the vocalist for the band XYZ, and the former vocalist of Great White. We've also got a couple others scheduled to be recorded. We'll talk about those once they happen. Follow us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Might be running a contest very soon. Let's see, next week is the 2 Minutes to Tulsa show here in Tulsa that I've talked about a few times. With Night Demon, Haunt, Exciter, Satan, Sadistic Force, Hammerhead. I know I'm forgetting a couple. Blind Oath, of course, our Tulsa favorites. But yeah, check that one out. Tickets at canesballroom.com. That's brought to you by Horton Records. We'll be talking about that, of course, next week again as well. So yeah, all that great stuff to look forward to. And that should cover it for another episode. A huge thank you to Greg Upchurch, DEB Concerts, Med Farm, and Sunset Tattoo. And until next time.
Thunder Underground, y'all.